it's been a pretty intense year, to say the least. Everyone's talked about how booming the super yacht industry is, and it certainly appears that way. But how's it been for you from the legal perspective? Looking back at 2021.
I think you will struggle to find anyone in our industry and also in the legal sector to say that I haven't been busy.
Yeah.
It's been the busiest year I can say since 2008 for sure.
Mm-hmm.
The market has changed, like we had not seen since before 2008.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say it's now become more of a builder and a seller's market, and it's just booming.
Yeah.
For now, it's just booming. It's just super busy. Everyone also has never been so busy before. They cannot keep up with the work.
But when you said 2008, and that's got obvious connotations as to what happened after 2008. Do you think we've learned from the mistakes in the lead up to there, or is there, hints of a bubble?
I think the human being usually tends to forget quite easily
Yeah,
from their mistakes.
Yeah.
Well, it's a difficult question because as of now the market is so busy and people are probably not expecting or they're not planning how the next change will be.
Yeah.
But in my view, in the mid-term, we probably see a number of clients, both either from the builder or the buyer side, they might have overcommitted. So when you're talking on large-scale numbers, there's always a portion of that which might lose the capacity to keep up with the projects that they commissioned.
Are you starting to see some more intriguing and interesting clients becoming involved? Or is it, have you seen much of a shift in the kind of demographic of the people that you're dealing with from a legal perspective?
From what I've seen, when the pandemic started, there's been a big coming back of owners in the range of the 40 meters, 40, 50 meters, which wasn't so busy before because we've seen the larger projects remaining steady even before the pandemic.
And they take up a lot of the oxygen in the room from a media perspective as well.
And I think part of that segment of the market becoming so active is because people realized how life can be fragile. They had a lot of time to dedicate their passion into yachting and invest their money. And then obviously the sea became the safest port. So a lot of families, and that happened with the chartering as well, because the chartering has been super busy last year because everyone wanted to have their getaway on the sea.
Yeah, but to capitalize on that groundswell of enthusiasm, right? That people want to see the yacht as being a way of experiencing life. If we can't deliver the boats for another 5, 6, 7 years, does that demand overflow into the second-hand market, or do you think we're in danger of losing a lot of potential clients?
I think it will be a mid-long process before we will see a potential downfall. As it happened in 2008.
Was that a mid to long process though? It felt, I was younger then, but it felt fairly abrupt.
But if you think straight after 2008, the Monaco yacht shows, I think it was a couple of editions falling after that. They were still very busy because the yacht had been commissioned before.
Contracts were signed a couple of years ago.
Yeah, exactly. So we saw the projects that were commissioned 2 or 3 years ago before the financial crisis. So we might have the same curve here, that before we see a downfall, it will be 1 or 2 years before we can actually give an estimate or have a perception as to what builders and what owners might try and step away from the industry. And then business-wise, I'm pleased to say that I see a lot of segment of the industry becoming much more educated and understanding the technicalities and a little bit more transparency as well towards.
Is that because they had bad advice in the past, or is it just pure ignorance of the legal sector?
I think in a way probably lawyers are seen as obstructing the deals rather than assisting the deals.
Yeah.
And I've seen clients now understanding that if you get good legal advice, you protect the client, you protect yourself, you're being fully transparent and supportive, and it's an added value.
Yeah.
But historically, the lawyers, they've never been perceived as a positive element to the deals.
Cheers, gents.
Cheers.
Thank you for joining me
Pleasure.
again. It's lovely to see you both. I suppose the last time we saw each other was pre-Monaco Yacht Show. We were all very sort of busy, but I hear you guys have been extremely busy since. So yeah, what do you attribute that to, I suppose?
I think perhaps the most active sales and purchase and new build market in maybe the last decade is probably something a lot to do with it. You know, someone that we know well said that a rising tide lifts all boats, and I think that's certainly true of what's been going on in the yacht market.
Yeah.
You know, it's been extremely active with a lot of new entrants and a lot of people getting involved in projects and buying and selling. So I think, you know, we're just part and parcel of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, at the risk of mentioning the big C, the new big C straight away, I do think that the pandemic has given people pause for thought about how they're using their money, what they can do with it, and the opportunities that they may be missing out on, and that's causing people to come into the market for the flexibility, the thrill of yachting and yacht ownership. And I think a lot of repeat customers coming back to shipyards that they built with before, we're aware of that as well. Everyone seems to be upsizing, whether they're sort of either entering perhaps the new build market or the sale and purchase market, having been a long-standing charter client, or they've built a 40 metre or 50 metre and are upscaling and are perhaps visiting, you know, one of the well-known shipyards in Germany or Holland for the first time. But as Mark says, I think that rising tide is affecting everyone and every participant in the market.
So I suppose I mean, it is the season to reflect, of course. It sounds like it's been an incredibly successful year for Hannaford Turner. Do you feel it's been it's a tricky question, because personally, obviously, as you said, Adam, our civil liberties have been impinged like we couldn't even have imagined. But do you feel it's been a positive year for the superyacht industry as a whole?
I think the answer to that has to be yes. It has to be an unequivocal yes. Simply by virtue of the activity that we've seen going on, and the number of new entrants to the market. It does seem to be that there are people queuing up to get build slots at the top quality yachts. Swathes and swathes of them. Same in the sale and purchase market. You know, as I say, I think there is almost that. Every level of market participant seems to be tempted to go to that next step, whether it's dipping their toes into purchasing for the first time in the second-hand market, or building for the first time, having been, you know, a previous owner. It's a very exciting time. The other trend, it's a bit of a trope now. I think we've talked about it before, but we really are seeing more and more entrants into the market going for explorer yachts, which I really find an exciting trend, and doing really interesting things with their yachts. And I'm not saying for a minute that exploring the beauties of the Mediterranean isn't an interesting thing, but what I am saying
it's not
is
exploring.
No, perhaps not. What I am saying is using these vessels that are built, you know, with huge range, you know, to be operated in really difficult climatic conditions, and actually use them to their full potential. Be that, you know, taking them to, you know, British Columbia or the Galapagos, or, you know, down to one of the poles, down or up, I should say. Yeah, that's really exciting.
So you mentioned exciting changes. What are your respective outlooks for 2022 and beyond?
I don't personally see the upswing we've seen this year changing anytime soon, because I don't think the market's caught up with demand yet. And I also think that there's always a rush to quality, isn't there? Insofar as let me rephrase that. When a market corrects downwards, you tend to find that the best-in-class guys are okay. There's always demand for them. When the market's going up, they also see, the upswing more than anyone else. It seems to me. I don't think, based on the network we have within the industry, clients, contacts, and friends, I don't see the demand being slaked, if you like, in 2022. I think there'll be it's more of the same. I mean, we see a similar dynamic in the private aviation world, where we're also active. Again, I think at the moment there's just not enough high quality airframes to go around for the guys with the means to acquire them. So I don't see that changing in 2022 either.
No, I think also there's going to be an added factor in 2022, not just for the demand for people transacting, perhaps whether it's for the first time or building for the first time, but also the people who have bought yachts from the beginning of 2020 who have in some instances dipped their toe in the water for the first time. I think we're also going to see those clients migrating up and going through the cycle that you often see, and we have seen it ourselves with clients that in a very short time horizon, and again we can chart it back to 2020, buying sort of entry level yachts, getting in at the 24, 25, 26 plus meter mark, and then now they're into a territory of looking at the 40 meters, and or custom yachts or semi-custom, and I think that's in 2022, just over time as they develop their journey throughout the superyacht industry. I think we're going to be seeing activity in those spaces as well.
You don't necessarily have to have an expedition yacht or an explorer style yacht. A yacht doesn't have to be ice class to be able to do exciting things and take it to remote destinations.
I think it's a bit of a misnomer, right? When people say, "Oh, it's got an ice hull," it's like, technically everything, is going to be okay, right? Unless it's got the fuel lines plumbed right against the hull, which no one does. It's almost overstated. All these yachts have got the range, they've got the capability. Everything can be an explorer if you want to do it.
I think it's more a mentality. It's more of a mindset wanting to explore with any yacht or boat, be it a very small boat that I might explore with on a weekend, down on the coast here in the UK. It's a octopus. If you approach, yachting and traveling with the right mentality to try and travel with a purpose and see places, the real place that you're trying to see, and engage with local people and local communities and try and learn about those different places, that's more important in some ways than the hardware. Obviously there's certain things which are really useful to have in an explorer vessel, like storage for kit and equipment, and
garbage locker that's not going to fill up.
Of course, and
all the stuff no one likes talking about.
Of course, and also the berths, maybe to bring in extra experts or guides, which often is overlooked, which is usually the first thing that we ask when we're trying to charter an explorer yacht or work with an explorer yacht, is who can we bring on board to elevate the experience above and beyond the crew that's on board. Not that the crew that's on board aren't able to give a great experience, but you can elevate and bring in experts into certain areas, which is really worth it.
And I think it's something that I've noticed as well, is that because there's never ever a surplus of crew accommodation, that when you try to bring in these experts, they sometimes get caught in a weird middle ground of they're not quite guests, not quite crew. And we've put people on bunk beds and gyms, and it never really works. But these are the people that make or break the trips, right? They're the difference between an okay trip and a great trip. Or wouldn't you agree? I think that's something that needs to be factored in a bit more with potential.
I always refer back to going on sort of safari, and when you're on safari and you have a ranger or a guide who's with you, and you might be having a very slow day, you're not seeing the big five, you're not seeing lions or elephant or anything, but you have an experienced guide and he can point out the little minutiae, this beetle here is doing that, or this plant is being used traditionally in medicine for that. And he brings like the little macroscopic world to life, and that makes your experience so much better and interesting. And I always equate that to sort of yachting. If you somewhere exciting, you can bring a specialist on board, a guide or a marine biologist, and they can bring little things to life that you, if you were just skimming on the surface, cruising by, you normally wouldn't notice or be aware of. So it really does add an extra level to the experience.
Where would you say that the next kind of growth area for the exploration yachts is? You know, like I think, well, not exploration, but for the more adventurous, you know, focused yachts. You know, we've seen the Pacific grow, Latin America growing a little bit. I saw you had Africa and Madagascar listed. Is that an area that you think is going to grow and blossom, or you know, where do you see it?
So at the moment we're receiving a lot of inquiries for Greenland.
Sure.
So that's, I think, going to be very busy this coming summer, particularly as well with some of the regulations for Svalbard changing. So a lot of yachts are sort of changing their cruising areas as well. And yeah, we're getting a few more inquiries for Eastern Africa, Madagascar. It's yet to take off, but I think once people start to go there and they see what they can do, especially the sort of northwest of Madagascar, Mozambican Channel, you have a group of islands off there. I think it could really start to take off, and it's not too far from the Maldives and the Seychelles and all that. You can do some pretty interesting stuff.
From a commercial point of view, it makes sense to go through that way. What our challenge is trying to find yachts in interesting places and trying to encourage owners to go there. It's a bit of a chicken and egg kind of situation. Yachts, if you want it to charter in these remote places, you need a bit of lead time to bring those charters in, but at the same time, you know, people don't want to commit to sending their yachts halfway around the world.
We had exactly that. We had a not disastrous, I won't mention the yacht, but we tried to do that. You know, we were very successful charter yacht in the Med and the Caribbean, and we said, well, why don't we do a round the world trip on the fly, you know, with a couple months notice. We'll go to Asia, we'll go to the Pacific, and we'll pick up charters as we go. And you couldn't do it, you know, you just couldn't do it. We'd say, well, look, we're in Asia, who wants to charter us? After we'd have 12, 14 weeks in the Med, okay, now we're in Asia, nothing, crickets, you know, like, and it was really tough. It was really tough, and like you say, chicken and the egg, like, without people understanding the charter proposition in these more, you know, off the beaten track destinations, doesn't encourage other boats to go there, and it doesn't take off.
It has to be planned thoroughly, and this is what we've been doing with quite a few owners and central agents and things, is putting together a plan to hit the best place to, hit the places at the best time of year that are going to maximize the attributes of that yacht, and then also trying to make it as commercial as possible to pick up as much charters en route so it works for everyone. And it's a bit of a Rubik's Cube to try and make that work, and it does require a lot of strategy and quite a lot of thought, and really to make it work you also have to plan a little bit in advance. You can't just go on an owner's whim here or there. You kind of need to stick to your plan a little bit.
There's a little bit of trepidation around the idea that all this growth and expansion in the shipyards and all these order books is all great, but are we threatening a bit of a bubble? But I guess from your perspective, is all the growth good? Like, do you see next year as being, you know, a continuation, or are you also kind of cautious with the rapid growth that we're seeing?
I think, obviously, it depends which way you're looking at it. In terms of, we love pristine places on the planet, and we like to take our clients there and educate them about the issues in those different parts of the world. And
that's where perhaps too much visitation, well, not to disparage the Caribbean, but there's an example of a destination that's over-visited, that's over-touristed, that you know, is that a concern that you can be a victim of your own success?
To a degree. I mean, Svalbard, which is what Neil was talking about, are putting in stricter regulations to try and control that. But it's a big wide world out there, and if everyone's stuck in, you know, small areas of the Med and the Caribbean, there's opportunities for other yachts to visit some amazing places and actually see things in a different way. And we love it when clients who haven't maybe traveled that much from different parts of the world suddenly go to places they don't know much about, and their kids understand about some of the issues there, be it, you know, sustainability and marine animals under threat and all sorts of plastics, all sorts of things like this. So then these are the people who can go back home and really make a change to the world in terms of how I can do my recycling every week, and it's only going to have so much impact. The kind of people who are yacht owners and charterers, and if they can see some of the issues that the world is facing, they can really make a difference when they go back home. So I think that's quite an exciting, and I always find that really rewarding when you see some of those light bulbs
little
click.
incremental changes, right? It can be quite influential.
But is the world getting too populated with super yachts? I mean, it's still a big place.
It's still a big place. It's still a big place.
Paul, thank you very much for joining us on our winter edition of the Super Yacht Live Tour. I mean, it's just a great opportunity to get into the pub and do something a bit more fun pre-Christmas. But to ease you in with an easy question, how do you think the last year has gone?
I think we had obviously a lot of change with the business being sold at the end of 31/12/20. So a new name over the door, but the people and the product very much the same. So there were some issues with integrating IT systems and all that kind of stuff. But we the team worked really hard, put a lot of hours in, got it done, and it's great. And we've had a pretty good year. It's gone well.
And what about let's put the pressure on and start playing and see how we go.
Yeah.
What about the market more generally? How would you say, because obviously there was the return of Monaco, there was plenty of up and down with coronavirus.
Yep.
Well, that's not a bad start, is it?
50.
50.
There you go.
I'm quite happy with that.
You're in double. You're in double figures anyway.
It's a great start.
But yeah, I mean, for us as insurers, we started the year with a lot of aggregation in shipyards that was perhaps not as expected as we wanted it to be. So we had to try and deal with that. 44.
Nice solid start.
Yeah. But
thank you very much.
So that sort of, that was a result of the pandemic and people choosing to put their boats in yards to get work done. I think we also saw some big boats stay there longer than they perhaps would have done. They were scheduled for. So, when you got the big stuff at sort of 2, 3, 4, 500 million a go, when there's sort of 4 or 5 of them in the same, useless. 4 or 5 of them in the same shipyard. You've got 3 or 4 out of the 5. Your aggregation tends to jump up quite a lot.
And what about in terms of the sort of return of the show season? There was a lot of talk about the various benefits of Monaco being back. Everyone was thrilled because yachts are being sold, and that was a good reflection of the market's performance itself. But do you think the return of the shows really aided that?
For us, I mean, I think 21. Looking at I had the monthly vessel value report in this morning, and looking at that, they are showing something like 418 sales in where they bracket super yachts. I think that's 30 metres and up, but in 2020, 799 by the end of November in 21, and we know because we've got the quotes out there, there's another 3 or 4 in the offing at the moment. Which...
Oh, hello.
Hello, yeah. There's another 3 or 4 in the offing before the end of the year.
Do you think then, which leads me on to my next question, do you think 2022 is going to be a better year than 2021? Is it going to be a worse year? I think it's going to level out. I mean
yeah. I can't see that the level of sales will continue.
Yeah.
If I'm honest, I mean, if we take it, it was something like 799 sales this year in that report,
Yeah.
which is, if we're saying there's 5,000 yachts over 30 metres, that's 15% of the fleet that has actually changed hands in a year, and I'll be honest, I can't see that continuing.
Yeah.
But so I expect it will slow off a bit.
My last of the sort of like structured questions then is, what are your resolutions for New Year? Either in a professional sense, or it could be a resolution for the market. What would you like the industry to change in 2022? What would make your life easier?
I think it's quite, for me, the one thing, and we've talked about it before, but the one thing we spend far too much time on, brokers do, and probably clients do, is shipyard visits, refits, the paperwork, all happening at the last minute, which we've touched on that before, and people just understanding, oh God, what they need to do. In terms of that, and just being better organised.
Well, thank you very much for joining me on this Christmas edition of the live tour. I'll start off with a nice easy one. The past 12 months, how have they been for you and how have they been for the market from your perspective?
Well, for me, it's obviously been quite an interesting 12 months. As you know, Rory, had quite a big change in my career, setting up my own business, Christie Yachts, which is very exciting. But obviously that was quite a big personal change in circumstance with the industry, having been in the industry for almost 20 years now. For the industry, it's been fantastic. It's been off the charts year on the brokerage side, and I think the shipyards would also say from the new build side, can't seem to build enough boats right now. So yeah, the only problem we really have is supply. We've got plenty of demand, plenty of buyers, but not a huge amount to offer them. So I think that there could have been a lot more business. A lot was left out on the field, to coin a kind of rugby phrase. But the industry's in particularly good health. I think builders, brokerage, everyone has had a smashing year, really. COVID has been the perfect experiment in working remotely. It's propelled the way we work and live by 10, 15, maybe even 20 years. I mean, no one would have thought, if you'd said 2 years ago, hey, let's all get on a Zoom, guys, and have this meeting, most of them would have gone, how do we do it? You know what the first few weeks of COVID were like. There was always one person who couldn't log in, but we all now know what we're doing. So a lot of people running these companies, the kind of people who buy boats, the ultra high net worth individuals who are running companies, were always nervous about spending prolonged periods away from headquarters, away from their companies, but they now know it's possible. So we had clients who were previously saying, I charter a boat for 2 weeks in the summer, I go skiing for 2 weeks over the winter, and I don't have time to own a boat right now because I'm too busy running my company. Those people are now comfortable owning a boat because they can work remotely. We've got all the SATCOMs on board. So we're actually seeing the average age of owner coming down quite significantly. About two to 3 years ago, you'd be surprised at how old the average age of an owner was.
In terms of the sort of challenges, the capacity, and that's, I assume, both on the brokerage side and the new build side, both have been discussed at length. What does that mean for 2022? Is it going to be a better year, inverted commas, or is it going to be a worse year? Are those challenges going to come to bear early because of the lack of supply that you're already saying exists? What are you looking at from the brokerage side?
I think realistically it will be a good year. I don't know whether it will be as good as this because I literally think we will be held back by the lack of supply. And the conversation I'm having regularly with owners is, will you sell your yacht? Well, if I sell it, what else do I buy? I've got nothing on the brokerage market to offer you. And then if we look at new build options, we're talking about delivery in 2025, 2026, with a price at a massive premium to what you're going to sell your boat for, because shipyards, unfortunately, are suffering from inflated costs, like all other areas of the economy. raw material costs are up, and that's feeding through to subcontractors, to equipment makers. I was speaking to the head of a shipyard the other day and said it's very difficult to price for these boats. We'll sign a contract with a price in mind for, let's just say, a water maker. We go to a water maker and manufacturer and say we'd like to order that now, and the price has already gone up by 10%. So they're having to build in a lot of safety margin into their pricing, which again means that owners are more reluctant to sell their boats, as the buy-in cost to get in again is a long waiting time and also massively inflated cost.
Looking again forward to 2022 then, and along the sort of festive theme, would you have any New Year's resolutions for the market in terms of what the industry could change, or what the industry should change en masse, or one that you may have personally in terms of how you're going to change your approach or where you want to evolve? What would be the resolution from you?
I think as an industry, I think just transparency would be good, because I think we've spoken about this many times already. I think we're on the same page on this, but the whole pricing thing, and owners being told, valuations which frankly are never achievable, and putting their boats in the market and then getting disappointed the boats aren't selling, and then maybe you're missing a good opportunity to sell the boat early on in the process because someone comes on with what is actually a good offer, but because they've been told this magical number by a broker to win the agency, it's so far off that they missed that golden opportunity to sell the boat, and that frustrates me no end, because it doesn't serve any of our interests. Because if we have a market which isn't liquid, where boats aren't selling quite quickly, from the outside it doesn't look like a market that many people want to get involved in. I mean, when you buy any asset, you like the idea that if one day you change your mind and you want to sell it and get your cash back, that you can relatively easily and relatively quickly. And that is causing a lot of stagnation in the market, which isn't good for anyone. On a personal level, not kind of home life, I'm not going to exercise more, I'm not going to give up drinking. I'm enjoying this drink very much by the fireside here, but I think on a personal level, just try and stick to the core values that I've set up for Christie Yachts, which is stay relatively small, stay very focused, stick to what you're good at, and don't try and overextend yourself and get distracted by other services that you may not be so good at. And I'm working with some great partners in other services in the industry, and I think that suits my clients very well, that where I don't do something, I'll introduce them to the person I think is very best at it. But I think being a specialist and sticking to what you know is quite a good rule for life.
Mark, thank you. Thanks for joining us. You're the last in a very long and arduous 3-day crawl, as it were. But I'd like to think we've saved the best till last.
That's very kind of you.
So we've been asking everybody at this time of year. You'd probably expect to be asked what you think of 2021 in market terms. One thing I'd like to put to you specifically is, yes, has it been a good year? But also, what constitutes a good year in the insurance sector?
I guess, whether you could call it a good year or not, I probably wouldn't call it a good year. In terms of the cold hard business facts, it's been fine. We've had quite a lot of changes in personnel within Willis, so we've had to deal with that, and that's a bit unsettling. Plus, not being able to be together hardly at all. We've managed to a few times in the past month or so. Has stopped the development of people as quickly as I would have liked it to have been. So it's been a very difficult year in terms of that. Financially, it's been fine. Not outstanding, but okay. Next year, we're hoping for better, a more established group. Those people being able to spend some time with each other. That's the hope.
So, the upward correction surely is to a more natural state of where the market should be.
Well, you would think so. I mean, I'm not privy to the numbers particularly. We see the Lloyd's figures. But other than that, it's very difficult for us to get stats out of the insurance companies to say what their profit and loss has been on the book. So, we keep a close eye on any major incidents that happen, and try and get an understanding of what impact that will have on the markets that that right that. But other than that, it has been a correction, and from what I understand anyway, most of the insurers are starting to turn a profit on it now. Not a big one, but are starting to make some money again. So that creates sustainability. So I'm hopeful that we've kind of reached the zenith of the pricing, and we might even see it start to come down again.
So, obviously, a lot of my conversations, we've been talking to the legal sector over the course of this week, and they're tickled pink because ultimately there's new contracts, there's sale and purchase transactions for the second-hand boats. It's happening all over the place, and it doesn't seem to be easing up. From your point of view, what for your sector, what does a bumpy year like 2021 mean in terms of the I suppose the new inventory?
We've seen quite a lot. It's been quite active. There's also been it's very competitive. Quite a lot of people coming in that are inexperienced yacht owners and don't necessarily understand the things we need from them in order to be able to help. I think that what it will really do is just recreate the platform for yachting, for big yachting, to have a place where it can kind of sit happily and not need to either expand too quickly or contract too quickly from next year onwards. I guess that's probably how I would see it. The difficulties have been, we're a city-based UK company, and so are our employees, along with an office in Ipswich. And so for us to be out in amongst where the transactions are taking place and where the builds are happening, and when it's been quite difficult, it's been pretty impossible. So we've had to rely a little bit more on outside sources, local sources to those shipyards and to where those transactions are taking place, to need our capability and our expertise rather than being in control of it ourselves, which is a bit unusual for us, but we've had to adapt. Once we start travelling again, it may go back to the normal model that we like to work to, but it's been different and been quite challenging, I would say.
So we've sort of had the retrospection. What's your outlook? What's your market outlook within your sector for the year ahead?
Well, I think it would be another consolidatory year. I don't see the market changing very much over the next 12 months. What I do see is as it becomes more profitable, I can see some markets coming back in who left the marketplace when the losses were really horrible a few years ago, and that potentially could cause some price reductions.
More price reductions.
It's a cyclical thing. These insurance markets, or any marketplace, is cyclical, and the more capacity we have, the cheaper it comes out. It's like if you've got 10 guys selling oranges in the market outside here, the prices are going to go down and down and down. So the more availability of insurance there is, the prices will reduce. So we're just in a kind of bit of a holding pattern, I think, at the moment with that, and no real sign of anybody of any size coming back in. But as we speak, there may be people doing business plans for next year that involve it. So we'll wait and see.
You guys can't get a break. The market's just adjusted up, and we're already staring at down the barrel.
It just doesn't last long. None of this stuff really lasts very long because it's a market. It's one of the last really true marketplaces. And our job as brokers is to go and find our clients the best option in that marketplace. It is, you could call it fruit and veg if you want, but we are charged by our clients to go and find the best deal for them.